Incoming message.
August 2026 just dropped what a ton of researchers are literally calling the clearest Bigfoot footage ever captured. I mean, it absolutely took the internet by storm, right? It was dominating conversations all over the globe. But look, we're not here today to just stare at another blurry creature in the woods. Actually, we're going to look at this from a completely different angle, because the real story here, it isn't just about the footage itself. It's about how it surfaced, who actually found it, and a deeply, deeply fascinating mystery that pretty much everyone seems to be ignoring. So welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to break down the sources, the hard data, and the behavioral psychology surrounding this wild August 2026 footage. Okay, let's dive right into this by asking the single most important question right off the bat. Why did the person who filmed this go completely silent? Seriously, think about it for a second. We live in an era where everyone is desperate for a viral moment, right? But the person who filmed this, they didn't post it for views, they definitely didn't post it for clout, and ever since the footage exploded online, they have completely vanished from the public eye. So I want to pivot our focus entirely away from the creature for a minute and put it squarely onto the human behind the camera, because honestly, that is where the real story begins. You know, you've probably seen headlines exactly like this one scrolling through your feeds. There was this huge viral social media reel by Kara Walters that literally screamed, "This is the clearest Bigfoot footage from 2026. Story behind it will terrify you." It had this massive cross-platform spread. We're talking hundreds of thousands of views. But as it spread like wildfire, everyone just focused entirely on the spectacle. They analyzed the pixels, they debated the shadows, they argued endlessly in the comment sections. But in doing all that, the mainstream coverage completely ignored the most credible part of the entire narrative, the human element. Every viral cryptid video gets overanalyzed for the creature, but almost none of them get analyzed for the human story behind it. So, Act 1, the reluctant witness profile. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it forces a total paradigm shift. In cryptid research, witness behavior is actually the primary credibility filter used by experts. Way before they even look at the anatomy of whatever's on screen, they look at the psychology of the person holding the lens. So, let's impartially compare these two profiles. Over on the left, we've got your standard hoaxer behavior profile. It follows a super predictable pattern, right? Immediate upload, some dramatic title, relentless engagement farming, going on a media tour, and ultimately monetization. They want to cash in on their fake. But on the right, look at the August 2026 hiker behavior. This witness didn't even realize what he had. It was a highly reluctant upload, there was absolutely no commentary added to the video, and then absolute silence. No interviews, not a single monetized view. When we actually walk through the timeline logically, it totally proves a complete lack of premeditation. Let's trace it together. On the day of the hike, the footage was recorded, but the hiker largely ignored it. He just kept hiking. It wasn't until weeks later, that a friend was reviewing his footage, spotted this massive figure in the background, and basically pressured him to share it. Then, during the viral spread, it was uploaded incredibly reluctantly, which brings us right to present day, where the witness has gone completely silent. This timeline is absolutely crucial because it highlights that the witness didn't orchestrate any of this. He didn't ask for this attention, which leads us right to this core psychological takeaway. Hoaxers chase fame. Genuine witnesses often retreat from it. In the realm of cryptid research, a retreating, unmonetized witness is statistically the most credible indicator of authenticity. When someone films something real and they are genuinely unsettled by what's happening to them, they don't lean into the spotlight, they run from it. Because a normal person doesn't actually want their entire life upended by becoming the Bigfoot guy on the internet. Let's move to and see how this builds. Act 2, biomechanics of the subject. So we've established that the human behind the camera doesn't fit the hoaxer profile at all. But what about the hard science of the footage itself? Researchers didn't just glance at this video and say, wow, that looks scary. No, they put it through some seriously rigorous biomechanical analysis. First, we kind of need to understand exactly what the experts are looking at here. Biomechanical signatures are specific physical markers of body movement. We're talking about things like the exact knee angle during a stride, the arc of an arm swing, shoulder rotation, and precisely where the center of gravity is positioned. Think of it like a physiological fingerprint. When you walk naturally, your body does certain things automatically. This is exactly how experts evaluate the authenticity of bipedal movement. It is incredibly difficult to fake natural biomechanics. Okay, let's break down the data. When a human puts on a heavy costume, they have to completely modify their natural signature to compensate, and it always shows. A human in a suit will typically adopt a really wide stance to balance the weight, they'll use these exaggerated arm movements, and they have deliberate, heavy, stomping footfalls. Now, compare that to the August 2026 subject. The gait is fluid and low impact. The stride length is entirely anomalous, meaning it would require an exceptionally tall human or just a completely non-human anatomy to achieve, and it features this remarkably deep knee flexion angle. A human stumbling around in a bulky suit simply couldn't accidentally fake these fluid, non-human movements. And, it's not just the movement, it's the unprecedented physical clarity of the footage that literally has researchers stunned. We aren't dealing with a blurry blob here. The sources note visible muscle definition rolling under the skin as the subject moves. The arm proportions, completely inconsistent with where a human's arms would sit inside a suit. The clarity is so high that facial structure is partially visible. And the most staggering conclusion from the experts? The anatomy does not match any known primate species on Earth. The specific visual evidence here systematically rules out a known animal or just some person playing a prank in a costume. Let's look a little closer at one specific anatomical detail because it is incredibly fascinating. That deep knee flexion we mentioned earlier, it's consistent with a creature adapted to forest terrain, not open ground. This is a brilliant biological detail. A creature that lives its entire life stepping over logs, navigating uneven brush, and moving through dense forests would naturally develop a deeper knee bend to absorb shock and maintain a low center of gravity. It's like built-in suspension. This specific evolutionary anatomical detail would be nearly impossible for some amateur hoaxer to deliberately coordinate in a fake video. It's a textbook hallmark of a genuine biological adaptation. Act 3. The Connecticut Corroboration. And this brilliantly illustrates how, just when you think you have a handle on this as an isolated incident, the source material throws a massive curveball. We have to look at the wider geographical context, because what seemed like a singular, bizarre event in the woods was actually part of something much, much larger. KFDM News reported, rural Connecticut Bigfoot sighting deemed credible by National Research Org. And guys, this wasn't years ago. This wasn't even months ago. This independent, simultaneous sighting occurred in the exact same month of August 2026. A completely different location, a completely different witness, but in the exact same time window. So, objectively speaking, we have to weigh the probabilities here. When independent sightings of the same type of creature occur in different states within the exact same month, there are really only two logical explanations. On one hand, you could have a coordinated cross-state hoax. But orchestrating that across multiple, unconnected participants in different regions, that is extraordinarily rare and incredibly difficult to execute without someone leaking the truth. On the other hand, you have a genuine migratory pattern. This is a highly common biological behavior in real, living species. Impartially speaking, multiple distinct sightings in the same month strongly point to a broader biological pattern rather than just a series of isolated, flawlessly executed pranks. So let's summarize the compounding layers of this whole mystery arc. We're looking at what researchers are calling the clearest bipedal footage on record. We have a highly reluctant witness exhibiting genuine shock and retreating from fame. We have non-human, terrain-adapted biomechanics that would be nearly impossible to fake. And we have simultaneous corroboration from a credible sighting in Connecticut. Look, I'm not here to tell you that Bigfoot is definitively real. We're just analyzing the sources impartially and letting the evidence speak for itself. But this compounding evidence? It makes the August 2026 event the strongest analytical case we've seen in decades. The human story behind it is just as convincing as the creature on the screen. Which leaves us with a final provocative thought. We've talked about the hoaxers who chase fame and the genuine witnesses who run from it. I want you to put yourself in the shoes of that silent hiker for just a second. If you're out in the woods completely alone and you pointed your camera at the tree line, what would you do if you filmed something that shouldn't exist and then the entire world wanted to talk to you about it? Would you cash in? Or would you go completely silent? Think about it. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and remember, always keep questioning what you see.
Come to me, chickens! Cock-a-doodle-doo!